Hey guys, I do a lot of consulting helping people buy boats, and more often than not, help them rule out a given boat before they make an offer on it. And we find problems, a lot of problems. So this video is to go over some of those problems and how I tackle each one. But I want to hear your thoughts too. We see fiberglass stress cracks constantly. Fiberglass is extremely strong and very easy to repair and to work with, but much more difficult to make it pretty after the repair's been done. My boat had stress cracks around the primary winch mounts, around the anchor roller, and a few other key locations. This happens over time, and my thoughts are they just stress cracks or something more serious? The only way to know is to start sanding, so I'll throw some 80 grit on the orbital and go to work, gently removing the gel coat over the cracks. Usually I find that the stress cracks were just in the gel coat, and the glass underneath is just fine, so I fair it out with either some fairing compound or thickened epoxy resin, lots of sanding to make that as pretty as I possibly can, and then cover up the spot with a barrier coat, and then paint or new gel coat. But here's the rub. If you're going to do one spot, I don't know about you sailors, but for me, I never get the color to match or make the repair completely disappear. So I've opted to fix every single blemish or inconsistency in the deck of Lady K entirely and then paint the top sides. That way, everything's fixed and you'd never know it. If the stress cracks are deeper than just the top coat, I'll keep sanding deeper and deeper into the glasswork until the stress cracks are gone. And I'll go a little bit further than the ends of the stress cracks to make sure that they can't go any further. Then I'll take biaxial glass and start building the area back up, crisscrossing the biaxial glass to maximize its strength. Sometimes, if I can, I'll build the spot back up higher and thicker and stronger than it used to be. People do this a lot around stanchion mounts, where the stanchion bolts to the deck and the mount cracks. It may as well be bigger and better than it ever was. Remember, odds are your boat was made with polyester resin when they built it, like most boats. I do my repairs with West System epoxy, which is stronger. So even to the same thickness as it used to be, it'll be stronger. But if you go with epoxy, you can't go back. This newfangled epoxy resin is better and will bond to the polyester boat, but you can't suddenly start using polyester again because it won't stick to the epoxy repair that you made last time. Just go with epoxy and don't look back. That's what most of us do. I only use West System, and not a shout out to their brand or anything. I use West System because I like the pumps. It makes it really easy. Also, some advice. Have a fiberglass kit like mine. I made this. Have your resin and your hardener and your gloves and stir sticks and spare glass all in one box. If you have to do some glass work, grab the box and away you go. It makes the job a lot easier to have everything you could possibly need in one place. So should you buy a boat with stress cracks? Well, do you want to do everything I just said? If you don't mind doing the work, then the stress cracks might be useful to drive the price down and buy the boat. If the stress cracks are too much to handle, don't. This is a big one on older boats. The keel and hull are joined together at the manufacturer with a layer of adhesives that spread in between. And once it's bolted together and glued together, they fair over that joint using fiberglass usually. As time goes by, the keel and hull are stressed, and that joint can start to show up in through the glass. The glass might even crack or wear away. Usually, this is totally normal, and we grind down the seam and re-glass it. On 80s racer cruisers, this is an every 5-year problem, and we just live with it. It won't leak water into the boat or anything because of all the adhesive. It's just a cosmetic thing most of the time. But if the crack gets worse, you may have a much bigger problem. The last thing anyone wants to do is drop a keel and replace its bolts. It's easier to buy a different boat if that happens, but you also don't want to risk losing the keel in the water. So everything you do next is extremely risky. Some folks will tighten the keel bolts. This is scary, but before you do, see if you can get from the manufacturer the specs on the torque that they applied to the boats, and repeat that process, knowing full well that in the process you could snap a bolt. If nothing breaks and you can retorque the bolts, great. Repair the crack on the outside and you're good. If, however, you do snap a bolt, it's kind of game over. You're dropping the keel now, and no one wants to do that. So, verdict? If the crack is just a thin crack in the glass cover-up over the keel joint and it never gets worse, fix it and move on. If it's starting to be a gap or you see it getting worse, it's a no-go for me. This is an easy one for me because I love used sails. I hang out with a lot of racers and they buy new sails every 4 or 5 years, so it's easy for me to grab their old ones for around $800 to $1,000 per sail. But I'm lucky because with my 35-foot sloop, here's the deal. Looking at this diagram on Sailboat data for your boat, you can get the P and E numbers for the mainsail. That's the height of the sail and the foot length. Mine happen to be very similar to other boats that are very common. CNC 35, 34, Columbia, North Star, Catalina. The I number defines the jib height, and again, mine's very close to many other boats. So my rig is super common. Used sails are easy to find, and brand new sails don't have to be custom measured and made. If you're looking at a boat with bad sails that is not super common, it might be a cause for pause. A Catalina tall rig, for example, needs different sails than every other Catalina. Less common. If your boat is very rare, it might be all custom work to make sails for it. More expensive. Before you make an offer on a boat with bad sails, go figure out how you're going to put sails on it and what it'll cost. Check the used market for availability if you're like me and you want to run 4-year-old dacron race sails. The mission here at Lady K Sailing has always been to get more people sailing more easily. And I couldn't do it without the patrons, people who give a couple of bucks an episode to make this all possible. If you'd like to help the cause, please consider becoming a patron. Rigging is a big deal. When it can cost $10,000 to $20,000 for new rigging, it can definitely be a reason not to buy a boat. And there are no secrets here, no hack to find a cheaper way to tackle this problem. It just is what it is. If you see rust coming out the top of a swage fitting, imagine how much rust there is down in the fitting. There's no way to know for sure, and if it breaks, the mast might come down. It'll be in 30 knots of wind, of course, with 6-foot white caps. That's when stuff goes bang. And when stuff goes bang and the mast comes down, there's a chance the remaining rigging will pull the mast back toward the boat, slamming into the hull, putting a big hole in it right at the waterline. If you want to lose a boat in less than 5 minutes flat, this is how you do that. So don't do it. There are some considerations though when you're boat shopping. How robust and complicated is the rigging on this boat? Is it just a sloop with 1x19 cable? That won't be unbearable. Or is it a B&R rig with stays running every which way between the spreaders? The more rigging, the more robust, the more the cost. I, for one, am a fan of replacing one shroud at a time. Take a cap shroud off and run a halyard in its place, and don't do any sailing for a bit, and bring that one shroud in to get remade. Reattach it, and when you have time, do a second one. Taking a whole boat or a whole set of rigging into the rigger at the same time can be a pretty big deal, but one piece at a time and your rigger might appreciate you, and they might do the work in their downtime between the bigger jobs. This is a complicated subject. We can't all luck out and find boats that were just repowered or have super low hours and have all their oil changes noted in the logbook. What we can do, though, is know a lot about the engine that the boat has before we go see it. A Yanmar 3G, for example, doesn't have glow plugs. It relies solely on compression to get running, so it can be a little bit noisy and hard to start if it's cold. Also, if the compression is a little bit low due to bad valves, which is usually why, some top-end work might be needed. Work that into your offer on the boat. It's very hard to figure out how bad an engine is on the inside with diesels, but there are a couple things you can do. When you arrive at the boat for the first time to see it, check the oil. You want to see if it's been changed regularly, so it shouldn't be black, but also, It shouldn't be warm. If it's warm, they ran the boat before you got there. Why? When the engine does start, watch for clouds of smoke from the back of the boat and note the temperature gauge. As it warms up, keep noting the temperatures at 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It should settle in after that and remain about the same. If you sea trial the boat, go backward at higher than idle RPM. If it has a bent prop shaft or a bent prop, it'll vibrate like crazy most of the time in reverse. After 10 minutes of motoring along, check the temperature again. When in doubt, you can ask your surveyor for an oil analysis. They'll send away a sample and a report comes back helping you understand the internal condition of the engine. I was going to do 10 things in this episode. I actually have 10 of them written down, but it would have been like half an hour long, so I'll do the other 5 next time. I'd love to hear from you, though, about your experience buying boats. What jobs did you have to do to your boat that, had you have known, you maybe wouldn't have bought the boat? Or are there any jobs that were way easier than you thought they were going to be? Share your wisdom with potential boat buyers in the comments. Until next week, friends, keep the heavy side down, but not too far down. I love you guys.